Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Aliens are back on the menu considering recent events, so I figured I'd post my experiences. My first one goes back into the early 2000s. Be me. Late evening, sometime between 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Hanging out at a park with a group of friends, sitting on the swing set that faces Lake Ontario. Usual boring and sober night. Clear sky. All of a sudden, beams of light start zooming across the surface of the water horizontally. They're changing colors one by one. We get off the swing set to get a closer look. Can barely make out some sort of object at the head of these beams, like a spherical or oval-shaped object. It ends just as abruptly as it started. We never mentioned it to anyone, but I still think about it from time to time. Fast forward to 2014. Be me. Sleeping on the living room couch, mainly because I had no internet at the time, so I just watched movies, in a lucid state. I sit up, so not sleep paralysis. It's early morning, but it's starting to become sunny. Look at the glass window of the front door. Someone is standing there. There's no knocking or doorbell ringing. Black eyes. I ask, "Who are you?" in a raised voice so he can hear me. No response. Start to panic. "Who are you?" I start yelling. That is how I woke up, sitting up on my couch yelling, "Who are you?" at the door. And no matter how hard I try to remember what the apparition outside my door looked like, all I can remember is a wrinkled old face with black eyes. Almost like Pick-related, but a little more human-like. Next one is 2 years later, 2016. Fall asleep on a couch in my basement. No particular reason for sleeping down there other than was just watching Netflix and was too tired and lazy to go up to my room. Lights off, TV off. Wake up in the middle of the night. Pitch black. Remember that I'm an adult and remind myself that I'm not afraid of the dark. Something then aggressively walks right up to me from the darkness, and suddenly everything becomes blank after that. Next I remember I am being slammed onto the couch, blanket on. Breathing heavy and filled with terror. I get up and turn the light on. After standing there for a moment trembling, I decide I'm staying up for the rest of the night and start watching Netflix again. I was legit trembling for hours.
I was attending our family reunion at my uncle's cabin near Land O'Lakes State Forest, Minnesota, during the first week of July 1986. There were about 25 family members present, including my aunts, uncles, and cousins. It was the first night at the cabin, and all the children were set up in tents outside. That night, my two older brothers, my cousin, and I shared a 4-person tent about 150 feet away from the cabin. Since it was so long ago, I've just recently become more fearful of it. We were all sleeping. I guess it was around 2 a.m. I was sleeping on the far side of the tent, and for some reason I woke up in the middle of the night. I was lying flat on my back, and I found myself looking directly into the eyes of something. It was standing on my left near my head and appeared to be studying me before I woke. The image of its face, which I can still picture vividly in my head, is like other drawings that I've seen later in my adult life. Somewhat normal-sized head, though large for its body. It couldn't have been more than 4 feet tall, with a gray-green wrinkly face and very small nostril holes. The nose was almost flush with its face, the eyes. The frightening part about its eyes was the way that it was looking at me. Or maybe I misunderstood its reaction to my terror. It was wearing a collared uniform of sorts, similar to a trench coat that came down to the ground with seams on the front. I believe that this being was important. It was dark, fuchsia, purple in color, and appeared to be a dull suede texture. The moonlight made his face and coat sort of glow. The suit had a tall collar. I got the impression that this was a possible leader or overseer. This all happened in a few seconds. I remember being terrified and immediately trying to scream, but nothing happened. My brothers didn't wake. I just remember the very serious look that came over its face as if I had screamed. His head tilted back like he was scorning me, or that it was somehow disappointing. The next portion of my memory picks up shortly after. I remember being very cold and wet and beginning to wake again. This time I am on the ground in the weeds about 15 feet from the tent. It took all of 5 seconds after waking on the ground before I remembered the face that I just saw looking down at me from inside the tent, and I let out a terrifying scream. I remember I screamed so violently that I woke my aunt who was sleeping in the cabin over 150 feet away. I saw her silhouette after she quickly flipped on the lights to investigate. I ran to the tent and my brother was still scrambling to unzip the door. I remember the sound of the zipper when I finally opened it, and he reached his arms out and pulled me in. He was asking me what was wrong. I was scared and confused. He had me lie back down. As I lay there, I told him what I had seen in the tent with us. He told me to just go back to sleep. I never told him that I also just woke up outside. That wasn't supposed to be the important part. The next morning, there were about 10 other people who were talking and asking around if they knew who it was that was screaming at 3:30 in the morning. No one would say. My aunt chimed in and said she heard it too and how she had quickly looked out the window and couldn't see who it was. This also frightened me because I thought it was apparent to everyone. I went and found my mom and whispered to her that it was me that I screamed last night. She appeared worried and asked why. I saw an alien. I remember the nervous pause before she whispered back, "Don't say that to anyone, okay?" I believe that there was an hour or more of lost time between the encounter in the tent and realizing that I was outside the tent and screaming. How did I end up outside the tent? How did I get wet? Was I abducted? I've never been able to answer this.
I have a weird dream experience that I've never told anyone. I don't get nightmares or even dream often, so this one was very memorable. A few years ago, maybe summer 2018, up all night playing Counter-Strike until 3 a.m. Decide to go to bed. Girlfriend is up watching TV, waiting for the dogs to come inside before coming upstairs. Lay down and fall asleep. The next thing I remember, I was laying on the bathroom floor, terrified, with white lights coming from under the door, as if flashlights were in my bedroom. Someone trying to get into the bathroom. Think it's a dream and try to wake up. Can't wake up. Don't remember much after this. Lots of blurry thoughts, but nothing concrete. I remember walking outside in the grass barefoot. That's about it. Wake up, damn, what a fucked up dream. Girlfriend isn't in bed yet. Go downstairs and see her passed out on the couch. Call dogs inside. The backyard door is wide open because my girlfriend passed out. Dogs come running up from the basement, excited to see me as if I just got home. Dogs are never in the basement. Girlfriend wakes up, starts telling me about this scary dream she had about an alien abduction. My head starts racing with thoughts, but I play it cool so she doesn't freak out. Description of her dream is basically the same as what I had from a different perspective. Wow, that's crazy. Time to go to sleep. We go to bed and I never tell anyone. Girlfriend is now my wife. I'm an executive at a company with good pay, not some meth-out redneck. Would never tell anyone about it, even my wife.
I saw a UFO when I was a teenager. I'm 39 now. It was a very anticlimactic incident. I was home after school and noticed something reflecting in the sky. It was just a metal sphere pretty high up in the sky. It didn't move. I was looking around, hoping someone else would be outside, but no one was around. I just stared at it, not really believing it could be a UFO, and then it faded into nothing. I had doubts after what I saw. A few years ago, I had an encounter with an ET. Actually, several encounters. It's almost pointless describing this incident because no one believes it. I don't know that I would believe it if someone told me the same. My dog had been growing increasingly restless at night. As soon as I was about to fall asleep, she would panic and want to leave the room. I also have a security camera outside that room that stopped working inexplicably. I thought the panicking might have been a health issue, so I took her to a neurologist and they didn't find anything. One night, she panicked so badly that I let her leave the room. Later on that night, I woke up and saw an ET standing across from me. It was maybe 10 feet away. It was not sleep paralysis. I was sleeping on my right side and turned forward to get up and saw it. It did not move, and I got the impression immediately that I was not supposed to wake up. The first thing I noted immediately was that it did not look like Elle expected it to. It did not have some giant head. It had very human proportions, but was slightly smaller. I would guess it was around 5'6". The color was also very unusual. It had a very dark brown, olive marbled kind of color. It wasn't a solid color. The eyes were black and larger. After staring at it for maybe 10 seconds, I blacked out. But that was plenty of time to see and register what was happening. I have not felt terror like that since I was a child. Since then, there have been a couple of other incidents. Early in the morning, I saw the outline of a figure cross my room. The best way I could describe it was like someone wearing a green suit. It was transparent, but I could clearly see the form of it. And it talked. It had a very scratchy, whispery kind of voice. The last incident might be the strangest. I had sort of a dream where I clearly felt I was somewhere else. I did not feel like I was on a ship. I felt I was in a room somewhere in a different place. It was extremely bright, but natural light. But it wasn't harsh. The light was coming from outside, not the room. The floors were white, and the opposite wall was just glass with bright light coming through. I did not see any beings or anything besides that, but I distinctly remember thinking, is this actually happening? Am I in a building somewhere that is not Earth? This is where it gets even more strange. I woke up and found blood on my left hand along one of the wrinkles. It wasn't a lot, but I also didn't have a cut or see any kind of hole. I don't think I was physically abducted, but I think I was somehow mentally abducted.
11. Waiting for the bus. My house was out in the country, so my bus stop is way far from my house. All around are woods. Only one road in and out. This is in rural Montana. So that should give you an idea of how remote my house was. The bus even had to make a special route for me. One morning, I'm out there earlier than usual because my parents are fighting again, and I don't want to deal with that stuff. Early November, so it's cold but not freezing. Tourist season is over, so I'm not really looking around for anyone else. Figure I'm alone, so I put my headphones in and jam out to some sweet tunes while I wait. Doing a sick air guitar riff when I notice there's a guy across the street watching me. Oh shit, how long has he been watching me? Exe. Try to pretend I'm just scratching an itch or something because holy shit, that's really embarrassing. Guy doesn't seem to care, he just keeps staring at me. Stereotypical hiker, has the backpack and boots and everything. Think to myself that it's pretty late in the season for hikers. Start getting a little irritated that the guy is just standing there like I'm some tourist attraction. Turn my back on him and make my music louder. Still feel his eyes on me. Eventually turn back around. He's still there in the same place. I start getting super creeped out. What's this weirdo's deal? Bus should be here any time now, kinda hoping it gets here quick. The guy slowly reaches into his pocket and slowly pulls out a disposable camera, puts it up to his face. His finger slowly presses the button and he takes a picture of me. I have no idea what to do, but he's not done yet. He slowly turns the camera around and takes a picture of his face. I'm thoroughly shitting bricks now, absolutely certain I'm about to be serial killered. Then just like that, the bus comes. Run up to it and throw myself inside as soon as the doors open. Bus driver is looking at me like I'm an idiot. Tell her there's some weird guy standing around taking pictures of me. Where? She says. Realize the guy is gone. He must have taken off when the bus came. Later that day, the bus drops me off at the same spot. Make sure the guy isn't there when I get off. He's gone. The bus leaves, and I decide to go look around the area where he was. There's something by the road. Pick it up. It's a disposable camera. Pocket it and get the pictures developed as soon as I save up enough allowance to do it by myself. Didn't tell my parents because I didn't want them to start driving me to school. Stupid, I know. Sneak off one day when my parents are shopping and tell the photo developer guy in the photo department, yeah, I'm old, that I found the camera and don't know what's on it. He says he'll take a look. Next time I can sneak off during shopping, I go to pick up the pictures. Guy gives me a refund. What.jpg says there were only 2 pictures on the camera. He's looking at me weird, gives me the 2 photos. One is very clearly of me, staring at the camera with a worried expression. Looks like it was taken from across the street. Oh shit. I already know what the second photo is. Heart is pounding as I take it out of the envelope. He's staring right into the camera. I remember him not moving, but there's some kind of weird effect going on with his eyes, motion blur or something. Makes it look like his eyes are entirely made of the colored part, with a weird-shaped pupil. Scares the absolute shit out of me. Throw both pictures away and note back to my parents. Pic kinda related, closest I could come to what his eyes looked like.
When I was 13 years old or so, in the late 1980s, The neighborhood kids used to play hide and seek or capture the flag, often pretty late at night. Our parents were okay with it as long as we didn't leave the neighborhood. Anyway, one night after the game was over and everyone had gone home, my stepsister and I were hanging out in our front yard talking. At one point she stops talking and points into the sky and asks about a light in the sky. I turn and look and see it myself. The light was faint blue and was brighter and bigger than the stars around it. It was moving in ways that seemed impossible, and I believe it became aware we were looking at it as soon as I locked eyes on it. I don't know how to describe that. I know that. It was just this immediate feeling that it was looking right back at us. Suddenly, the light moved towards us almost in the blink of an eye. It went from being roughly double the size of a star in the sky to as bright as an airplane or helicopter searchlight instantly. There was no sound, and the light didn't illuminate the surrounding area, which gave it a weird feeling. I tried to say something to my sister, but I found myself unable to speak, and I could barely move. I just remember turning my head to see my sister looking very scared, also unable to speak or move. I thought I heard a noise and the light started shining on me, which made me turn my head back towards the object, and then I felt a piercing light basically blind me. I was bathed in the blue light. After this, things get a bit hazy, like I was meant to not remember it even though certain moments are as plain as any memory from that time. I was in a mostly dark place, but some lights seemed to hover by themselves with no visible technology, poles holding them up. I don't know if I was lying down or standing up because there was a feeling of no gravity or downward force in any direction. I remember interacting with an entity that was human-like, but seemed to be different, like a beautiful person that had no male or female characteristics, completely androgynous but with a very symmetrical and smooth appearance to the face and body, otherwise very human-looking. They talked to me, but I was acutely aware that it was in my head and not out loud. It was like moments of being conscious with moments of haziness in between. I don't know how to describe it. I was aware that they were doing things to me, but I don't remember what. But I do distinctly remember a piercing device they inserted just behind my ear on my right side. It went deep, but it didn't hurt. It just felt almost itchy for a second. And they told me they were taking a sample and depositing something that would allow them to remotely monitor me for some time. They explained that this was not the first time they had done this to me, specifically, that they would continue to do so throughout my life, and that there were literally thousands of people they were doing this to. It was a scientific study of some kind that they tried to explain to me, but I honestly don't remember the purpose. I was able to ask them a few other things in the moments of being conscious, like where my sister was, and they explained she was having the same thing done to her. I asked them point blank if they were aliens, and they found it humorous and told me they were humans from the future. But I got the distinct feeling that this wasn't the truth. Again, I don't know how to describe why I thought this. It was just a different feeling when they told me this versus the other things they were saying. It felt like a lie or simplification of some kind. After some time of being out of it again, I became aware that my body was bathed in blue light again, and the darkness started to recede and I was able to see the stars and the sky again. I don't know how long it was before I really understood where I was, but at some point I sort of came to and realized I was sitting on the grass next to my sister in the neighbor's yard about 50, maybe 60 feet from the original spot. My sister woke up almost at the same time. We both immediately looked at each other and then at the sky, and the light was gone, but the sun was coming up. It was then we realized it had been hours. We didn't really talk about what happened. We just felt the need to go inside and go to bed before we got in trouble. It was years later before I ever spoke to my sister about that night, and she remembers much less than I do. She remembers seeing the light, being blinded by it, and then feeling weird, and then waking up beside me. To this day, she has explained it away by us seeing a helicopter in the sky and just falling asleep because we were tired. She won't discuss it beyond that. I honestly had forgotten about this event until 2 years ago when my wife mentioned that I had a spot behind my right ear that kinda looked like a burn mark or a scar, but also like a pimple or mole. When she reminded me of it, the memories of the event flooded back into my head, and I was a bit emotional. She tried to pop it, but said nothing came out. It's still there and looks exactly as she describes it. Kinda like a mole, but also kinda like a scar. I've had MRIs and other scans throughout the years for various maladies, but nothing has ever shown up, so I have no idea what it is, or if anything is inside there. I try to not think of it now because although I wasn't scared at the time, it is unnerving to think about it now.
So please, help me out on this one. I don't know if I got abducted when I was a kid or not, but something weird happened to me. I supposedly had this very vivid dream that I was laying in my bed and suddenly felt this intense feeling of dread. Something in my head just told me that I had to run fast. I got up, went to the front door of my apartment, and ran towards the elevator, but it was going to take too long to arrive, so used the emergency stairs, wanting to leave my building ASAP. I managed to go all the way down to the parking lot when I saw two greys standing there in the middle of it. They were glowing, as if there was some sort of light source right above them. One of them raised their hand, and the dream was over. I woke up in the morning sweating, and my pillow, sheets, etc. were all over the room. I got up to use the bathroom, and my dad was pissed off because apparently the front door was open, saying that my mother probably left it open while taking the trash out or whatever. That was about 15 years ago. Throughout all those years, sometimes I feel quite uneasy at night, and I keep having these weird thoughts, seeing greys in my mind. Whenever this happens, I have some quite wild, lucid dreams, but usually about crazy, unrelated stuff, never about aliens.
Imagine if a bunch of armed men in ski masks busted into your bedroom at night and kidnapped you at gunpoint. While that would be terrifyingly traumatic, you'd at least have a few ideas as to what they were going to do with you. Maybe they're SWAT arresting you, criminals seeking to rob you or hold you for ransom, and least likely they're a team of psychopaths on a thrill kill. With the Greys, my abductors, there's no frame of reference and they're not too chatty. They mostly tell you not to scream because they won't hurt you. Lie. You're whisked up to either a small craft that's uncomfortably warm, stuffy, and smells awful, or on a huge ship, you're held in a hangar with a bunch of other paralyzed, naked people until your turn for the procedures. The work, as they call it, evolves over time. In childhood, you play with hybrid children, mostly games involving psychic puzzles and manifestation. When I hit puberty, they began the reproductive extractions, which I will not describe, but I'll say that assault is bad enough when it's inflicted by the same species. Fortunately, I was soon disqualified from the hybridization program due to incompatible chromosomal configurations. I was moved into what I would describe as a cultural assimilation program. Here they mess with your brain a lot. They put this helmet on that at first, scrambles all your thoughts, senses, emotions, and memories. Then they start downloading massive amounts of information and experiences. It's so fast and dense that it's completely disorienting, but over the years, fragments and patterns emerge. I remember at some point they were teaching me, or trying to, some multi-dimensional ideographic language system where they show these holographic modulating glyphs that don't make any sense until they instruct you to meditative focus on one at a time. Upon doing so, a glyph would stop shifting and unfold in my mind's eye like watching a movie in VR. Most of it seemed like historical and anthropological records of wars and other alien civilizations. Oftentimes, abductees describe the Greys as cold and emotionless. That's not entirely true. Yes, the short little drones are very robotic and childlike, but the tall, thin scientists definitely have distinct personalities. Some of them are downright frightening in how little they regard humans, even going so far as to express contempt and disgust for having to be in such close proximity to us. Others have developed a more human bedside manner, which I have been told is due to spending many decades here on Earth. One in particular, whom I called Doc, was almost jovial and had a very dry, sardonic humor. He said they loved me as their child and that he personally didn't agree with their mission here, but then he became very tight-lipped about it. The day after that reveal, I had a very unsettling Men in Black encounter, but that's another story. Most people aren't candid about these things because of both the trauma and the stigma. As a comedian, I don't worry about losing my job or any credibility. The worst-case scenario is that I can just hand-wave it away as doing a bit. It's my way of hiding in plain sight.
I think Grays tried to abduct me last night, and I think I shot and killed one. I apologize, I'm not very good at writing. Failed every English class I've taken, but here's Greentext with context. Been a night owl my entire life, a true neat degenerate. I stay up all night playing games and sleep all day. Around 1 a.m. I let my dog out to do his business for the night. Chilling in my kitchen on my phone, waiting for him to be done so I can let him back in. Notice a bright light in the sky off the side of a nearby apartment building. Realize it's not a plane because there aren't any blinking indicators and it isn't moving. I know it's not just a bright star because I live in Chicago, and light pollution means you don't get to see much, and it seemed just close enough to be over Lake Michigan. Decide, fuck it, I'm bored. Attempt to channel some kind of meme energy and communicate that I wanted to come closer and know more about AEs if there are any, because I've read from stories on here that UFOs have sometimes reacted to thoughts. Nothing happens, dog wants back in, and I go back to grinding bad video games. After an hour or two, I randomly decide I want to lie down on my couch and take a nap, even though I had just woken up a few hours ago and wasn't that tired. The nap lasted 11 hours and was one of the most vivid dreams I've had in a while. I also remember my dog barking at something that woke me up, but he's an annoying little shit sometimes and barks at everything. So I immediately went back to sleep. I don't typically remember my dreams, and when I do, it's usually only once or twice a month. A lot of the dreams are blurry now, but I remember some specific moments. Myself and 2 other men were together, trying to make it to a tower-like structure that was a very far distance in order to leave some kind of underground, artificial environment. The environment was fairly large, maybe a bit bigger than a typical college campus or small town. Starry sky, small rolling hills, and a wide grassy field with few one-story buildings scattered throughout, dirt roads connecting them, and the large mountainous spire at the end that led up. And for some reason we knew we had to climb to get out because we had come from there before. While traveling across the fields together in the dark, we came across a man with a vacant face in work overalls. He, in a monotone voice, told us we should go back because the way was closed and blankly stared at us as we passed. I don't remember the exact reason, but afterwards we ran into one of the buildings to hide from being found. The inside was similar to a parking garage with no vehicles, just slab concrete with an entryway and doors on both sides leading out, though one was locked. The 2 men were panicking, desperately trying to figure out where to go while I watched the entrance we came in from. From the doorway in front of me, 2 stereotypical gray aliens come in, height about to my breast, I'm 6'2", enlarged heads that didn't fit their skinny bodies, one slightly taller than the other with arm extended reaching out for us. One of the men rushed at them to try and fight them off. The other ran away deeper into the building. Feel something grab at me from behind, another singular gray that must have came from the locked door behind me. All I see is its large fucking head and black vacant eyes staring up at me as I struggle to break away from it. I guess at some point during this I instinctively reached for my waist holster, pulled out my 1911 and fired off 7 rounds into its head. Another gray I hadn't seen, or possibly one of the original 2, I'm not sure, comes over to grab the body of the one slumping over onto the floor as I bolt out the door that was locked before. Full sprint to the mountain in the distance, leaving the other men behind because I'm fucking panicking and full fight or flight. I don't remember anything else past that. I woke up in a cold sweat in my bed, 2 flights of stairs up from where I had fallen asleep. My first response, of course, was that it was just a bad dream like any normal person would. I went back down to my office in my basement, fired up a bad Korean FPS game, and played for a few hours. I started to get tired pretty quickly, like I hadn't slept at all. At this point I remembered my dream, and I guess because of the game I was playing, I went and checked my gun. I keep it loaded in my desk because someone tried to break into my home when I first moved in, and now I'm paranoid as fuck. There was only 1 round left in the 8-round magazine. I'm normally pretty skeptical of /X/ stuff, so I just passed it off as, that's weird, and went back to gaming. It wasn't until I went to let my dog out again just now that I remembered the light in the sky from the night before and made the connection to everything. My normie brain is telling me it was a nightmare and a weird set of coincidences, but my schizo brain has me worried as hell. WTF happened to me? Should I be scared that they'll come back?
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.